to an episode on the movie, the Alan Arkin movie that we did not get to in our in-laws episode. The movie is 1983's The Return of Captain Invincible. Is that right?
The Return of Captain Invincible, 1983, an Australian production, and I must say, a baffling film.
The fact that we just forgot to even just mention it is really funny because we had been discussing it and we had both watched it before the in-laws episode.
Yeah.
We forgot to bring it up, but there was just so much to say about Alan Arkin. So we're really excited to be able to just do this episode. Joe was able to get a hold of the movie itself, which is impossible. It's
impossible to find.
Yeah,
we found it, we tracked it down, we toe tagged it, and we observed it, and we did experiments on it, and we kept it alive as long as it could in captivity.
You can spend some dough and find the hard to find DVD, but since it's hard for you guys to do it, I'm going to put a lot of clips in, like a lot of clips. So it's going to be clips galore from that movie. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. Now, I'd like to thank Joe for being here. So we just had Hurricane Ida.
I'm in the rooms of my apartment.
I've been talking about his basement apartment in Queens for the last 3 podcasts I've done. And I've always said that kind of in a jokey way. It evokes New York City and, how shitty our lives are.
And they are. Hurricane Ida, of course, came in and there was a massive flash flood. It was a very serious situation. People lost their lives. They were all, so many of them were most of them were in basement apartments in Queens. And water started coming in from outside, 5 inches of water up to my ankles. It just basically destroyed everything in here and left an unsanitary situation and made it unlivable. And I'm not living here right now. I'm just here while I'm cleaning it up and getting my stuff out of here. It was a tough time. It was a tough night, and this place is basically a ruin now. So yeah, but I'm here and I'm on the air, and that's because of the return of Captain Invincible.
Yeah.
Because I needed to address that this film exists.
Yeah. So this is a movie made in Australia. I'm going to give you a little background first of all. So 1983. The director is Philippe Mora. Now, I know him because he did one of my favorite movies. Not a lot of people really like this movie, but he did Communion with the Christopher Walken science fiction horror movie based on the Whitley Schreiber book. And I have always adored that movie. Like, it scares me. I think I think some people think it's funny, but I think it's got that surreal kind of nightmarish scariness to it. I love that movie. But to connect this movie with that was very strange. But then when you look at the career of Philippe Mora, he was born in France. Philippe Mora. He's a real French guy, real live French guy, born in Paris in 1949.
Yeah. Many people are, in fact, from France.
He's one of them. He's one of those people.
It's not their fault. So send what you can, please.
So his family settled in Australia, Melbourne. He basically really grew up in Australia.
No, they didn't. They settled in Melbourne.
There you go, Melbourne. When he was a bit older, in 1967, so he was born in 49, so he was perfect age to move to King's Road in Chelsea in London. He was in the heart of the super hippest place in all of London at the coolest possible time you could be there, 67. So he made a lot of interesting arty friends. He was making films since he was a kid, and he got into this real art scene. He was actually part of the art show where the sculptures that Kubrick picked up for Clockwork Orange, like the penis sculpture and the Jesus dancing sculpture, he was in that art show apparently. When he was young, he was making like little fun fictional films, but he started making documentaries, and he very heavily relied on archival imagery. And you'll see that in this movie, there's plenty of that. And he always relied quite a bit on.
That's a nice way of saying it. There's the other way of saying it is they had no money, so it's full of stock footage.
No, he loved that stuff.
Tons of stock footage.
I think he just loved that stuff. He loved digging through old stock footage, and he was a little obsessed with the Holocaust. So he did a lot of all the way up till today. He's still alive, and he's still cranking stuff out. And there's always been a theme, like quite a lot of movies, documentaries, and fictionally themed movies around the Holocaust and stuff like that. So it's
a big theme here.
Yeah.
Kind of the main bad guy is Nazi, basically an actual Nazi.
Yeah, there's a Hitler in this. Most of his movies are a little schlocky. You can see the quality is not perfect, but he got the most unbelievable unbelievably cool people to work with him. His first significant movie was called Mad Dog Morgan, and it starred Dennis Hopper. And everybody was like, how did you get Dennis Hopper?
I've heard of that. I've heard of that film. That's one of the sort of famous Australian movies, right?
It's 1976. He both wrote and directed it. And Mad Dog Morgan was actually nominated for quite a lot of, Cannes Award, and, was nominated for quite a few things. So one of the next significant movies was The Beast Within, which is a horror movie written by Tom Holland, who would eventually write Fright Night, which is one of my favorite horror movies, actually. It's not very good. It was in that heyday of special effects, practical effects, where you would have inflatable bladders. Like it's literally called like air bladder special effects. And this was one of the first movies. It was around the time of The Thing. It's around the time of American Werewolf in London. And those kinds of things. And so there's this really long extended scene, and they do not cut away from this, of this guy's face just, it's one of the scariest and most horrifying examples of the horror transformation, like you see them turning into a werewolf. This guy turns into a monster, Cicada. Yeah, the bug. He turns into that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to see that.
Ronnie Cox is in it.
Oh, and, I love Ronnie Cox.
And Mishash Taylor in one of his early roles, the guy from
Designing Women, of course. Yeah. Of course, I know him.
Oh my God! And
that's
such an
odd combination of actors.
And a score by Les Baxter, and he said it's one of his favorite scores that he ever did. Okay.
My God.
So,
well, one thing about this guy's movies is they have incongruously good music, and Captain Invincible has, I would say, 30% good music. All right, good music is really good.
Yeah, so Captain Invincible comes around after this. So let me just quickly go through the rest of his career. It's not going to take long. Just a few things. He did 6 movies with Brian James. He reunited Rutger Hauer and Brian James after Blade Runner in a movie called Precious Find, I think, 96. Now, Christopher Lee.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so Christopher Lee is in Captain Invincible. That's one of the great things. One of the absolutely greatest things about Captain Invincible.
One of the few good things is what you meant to say, really.
And he later worked again with Christopher Lee in The Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf. That's the name of The Howling 2, Your Sister. Yeah. Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf.
Yeah.
Christopher Lee is in that. I'm telling you, people really like this director. Like, they must have enjoyed working with him, because they came back. Many people came back over and over again.
They had to have, because as you know, Christopher Lee was notoriously very, very picky about the project, said no to most everything. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, is what he said.
So then came Communion, which I think was really his biggest movie. I mean, that was the most widely released. I remember that being in the theaters.
You people, you sit there, you're in for one big surprise.
I love it. I think it's a really terrifying, great abduction movie, and it's done in a horror style, and I almost can't believe Philip Mora, hey, again, no offense, Mr. Mora, but I had a little hard to believe that he directed it by himself, because it's so unlike all the other movies, and it's like the quality is so ratcheted up in that movie. So I don't know, but that's why it's also strange. So that was 89. So now the other thing, this movie comes up over and over again for me when I'm researching like the history of comedy stuff, is the Pterodactyl Woman from Beverly Hills. It's either came out in 1994 or 1997, depending. I have a feeling it never really came out completely. It is starring Beverly D'Angelo. Here's who else is in it before I get into Beverly D'Angelo. Right. Moon Unit Zappa, Barry Humphries in 3 roles. Stephen Mchetty. Stephen Mchetty was, of course, in Look What's Happened to Rosemary's Baby. You guys should look for my video elsewhere in YouTube land. I did a whole piece for Kevin Geeks Out on Look What's Happened to Rosemary's Baby. So do Google that up if you want to learn more about Stephen Mchetty, who we love. Yeah, we love him.
And he was in the Watchmen film from about 10 years ago. He was Elaine's psychiatrist on Seinfeld, and he shows up in all kinds of things.
Brian James in two big roles in it. So Beverly D'Angelo. Now, I've never liked Beverly D'Angelo. I'm not a fan. I like a lot of movies she's in, but I've never been a fan of hers. Let me tell you, she really knocks it as hard out of the park as you can. She plays a woman who turns into, Joe, a pterodactyl. She literally turns into a pterodactyl.
It's in the title. If that didn't happen, I'd have felt like I'd want my money back.
And through the whole thing, she's squawking. Her head is going back. She's the whole thing.
Because that's what pterodactyls did.
She's doing that head jerking, bird head jerking. this is where I was like, all right, I'm a Beverly D'Angelo fan. I wasn't before. Now I am a convert. She really gives it her all. I don't know why. I'm not sure why. She even wrote a song for this. She performs a song, which I'm going to put in sort of clip of because it's written by Beverly D'Angelo. And the ending of it is one of the best scenes in the movie. Ooh, martini. All right, Pterodactyl Women from Beverly Hills. You got to watch that. Everything after that is really bad looking. This guy just will not stop making movies. He doesn't care how much money he has. He doesn't care what kind of equipment he has. He doesn't care. He cannot stop making movies. That's who he is.
More power to him. I think that's great.
Just one more thing is that he did a documentary on Christopher Lee, which I can't find. I'm dying to find it. He did it called Dracula Nazi Hunter. All right. So this movie, I guess you have, over our friendship, maybe sent me a clip of Christopher Lee singing in this.
I sent you the best part of the movie, which is the Name Your Poison number.
I got some economic hawks, a gin and tonic on the rocks, where angels fear to tread. I say, choose your booze, let's hit the red eye.
I knew that scene.
For 10 years, that was the only part of the movie I had ever seen. And I kind of gathered what the movie must be about. From that scene, and I was kind of right, which is it's about a washed up superhero who's an alcoholic. It is important to remind people that this movie is in fact a sort of comedy superhero musical.
Yeah.
And the primary singers of the songs in it are Alan Arkin, known for his singing.
Yeah.
And not known for his singing, and Sir Christopher Lee, known for his appearance in Hammer horror films, not at the time known for his singing, although he would become later.
Right. Well, what's funny is Alan Arkin wasn't known for his singing, but had a number 4 Billboard hit in his youth, right? Like we talked about that on the show. He was an amazing singer. I mean, the band, the Tarriers, were wonderful. He had a beautiful voice, and they had a literal number 4 hit single. So it's sort of funny because people don't think of him as a singer, but he was a very accomplished singer. And Christopher Lee had not done hardly. He did a little in Wicker Man, but he did hardly any singing. And later, because
and then later on, put out albums. He put out several heavy metal albums when he was in his 90s.
Yes. It was written by Steven D'Souza. Now, I believe it was his idea, and he wrote the original script, which was not a musical. It was just a straight script. And Philippe Mora was like, I've always wanted to do a musical. You know what? I'm going to make this a musical just because why not? He was good friends with the guy who directed both the theater production and the film of Rocky Horror, Jim Sharman. And he said, would you mind asking Jim O'Brien, tell him Christopher Lee is going to be singing these songs. Tell him that. And of course, Richard Bryan was like, absolutely. So he just was so thrilled to write a song for Christopher Lee. So he did that. So 3 of the songs out of there's maybe 10 songs.
There's about 10 songs.
Yeah.
And the songs are awful. They're just awful and unmemorable. Except for those 3 songs.
They could be worse. They could be worse. They could be worse. They're mixed.
No, I don't. I disagree that they could be worse. They're really bad.
They're of mixed quality.
Yeah, but there's 3 songs that are. One of them is called "Evil Midnight," and another one is called "Name Your Poison," and the other one, which I think is the one that runs over the end credits, is just a short Captain Invincible theme song.
Right.
And all 3 of those are great.
Now, the one that runs on the end credits is sung by Richard O'Brien. He actually sings that.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you'll recognize this. You'll notice it if you think about it. It's his singing. Yeah.
I really like the one over the end credits because it reminds me of the classic, the 1960s Marvel superhero theme songs from the Rainbow Bridge of Asgard. It's kind of like one of those. And I like that.
Well, it starts with that, but then it goes into a more groovy kind of pop song by Richard O'Brien. I'll play a little bit of that here.
Fight for a right always wins them all, wielding justice from above. Who stands for me and for you and for principle? Captain Invincible, that's who. I'm wrapped, I'm trapped, I've been sapped till
it's just an unbelievable combination of things. Christopher Arkin, Christopher Lee, Alan Arkin, Christopher Lee, and Richard
Arkin.
Let me just say, Christopher Lee, up to this point, he was known for Hammer horrors, for playing Dracula about 1 million times. He'd
been a Bond villain at that point.
And Wicker Man, what's really amazing is he apparently really was a Nazi hunter. When he was in his 20s, this was before he was even 25.
Oh, yeah.
He had joined the RAF, and he had an eye problem, like Columbo. He had an eye problem. And so he couldn't really fly. He knew how to fly, but they disqualified him. And so he asked to be put into the sort of RAF Secret Service. And what he did for a while was literally going around Europe hunting Nazis. For real.
Yeah. To give you some idea of what a badass he was in the war, his actual war record was classified.
Yeah.
So some shit went down. Some serious shit went down.
Yeah.
And you get an inkling of it on the extra features on the Lord of the Rings discs, where he played Saruman in Lord of the Rings, and there's a behind the scenes feature where Peter Jackson is directing him, and the scene is his death, where his sort of assistant stabs him in the back, and Peter Jackson wanted him to cry out and go, "Ah!" when he gets stabbed in the back. And on the footage, you can see Christopher Lee saying, well, in fact, when someone is stabbed in the back, they don't cry out because the air is knocked out of their lungs. So they actually kind of go like that.
Yeah.
It's really the sound of someone getting stabbed in the back. And you have to ask yourself, there's only one way he could know that so accurately, of what it's like up close when someone gets stabbed in the back.
Yeah.
He must have done it. He must have stabbed a Nazi clean in the back. Also, when he was 90 or 91 years old, he started recording these heavy metal albums that were based around the historical figure of Charlemagne.
12,000 men all dead in one day. They would not renounce their heathen ways. I shed blood of Saxon men. I shed the blood of the Saxon men. I shed the blood of the Saxon men. I shed the blood of the Saxon men.
The reason he wanted to do that was because he was a direct descendant of Charlemagne.
Yeah.
In fact,
he has this incredible pedigree. His mother was a countess.
Amazing. He wanted to be a James Bond villain, and one of the things that got him the job was that he was a cousin of Ian Fleming.
Yeah, his mother remarried to one, Ian Fleming's uncle or something. Now, just two more quick things about Christopher Lee that are of interest, just because he's so amazing. Is one, he witnessed the last guillotine, which was the last public execution in France. He witnessed it. So he's seen a lot of death, actually.
There's that. He was also the only person in the entire cast of the Lord of the Rings films who knew Tolkien.
Oh, God, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I was going to say he met the two people who killed Rasputin. He later played Rasputin. I mean, who knows? Maybe some of this, who knows? People make shit up. I don't know. It all sounds a little too good to be true.
I think some stories about Christopher Lee, that he was a pompous guy and that he was a huge bore and he was incredibly vain. So I could see him maybe embellishing and exaggerating his story. He liked to talk about himself a lot.
When you look at his whole life, it's a little bit.
So
someone needs to check some of this. But
I'm okay with it. But the main thing that's about Christopher Lee is none of that stuff. None of that stuff is important. What's important is that in every single film he is in, as soon as he opens his mouth, the sound of a symphony orchestra comes out. The greatest sound you've ever heard in your life. He had the most magnificent voice of any human who ever lived. And it's there in every role he played. It's there on his heavy metal albums. It's there in Lord of the Rings when he's addressing tens of thousands of orcs at Orthanc Tower.
I'm just thinking of him trying to convince the inspector in Wicker Man of why this island is the way it is. Which is just a very sort of famous little bit of dialogue.
Now, those children out there, they're jumping through the flames in the hope that the god of fire will make them fruitful. Really, you can hardly blame them. After all, what girl would not prefer the child of a god to that of some acne-scarred artisan? It's most important that each new generation born on Summer Isle be made aware that here the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true god?
to whose glory churches and monasteries have been built on these islands for generations past. Now, sir, what of him? Well, he's dead. He can't complain. He had his chance, and in modern parlance, blew it.
His accent, the timbre of his voice, the whole thing. There was something about it. Yeah.
Chills. You send chills down your spine. He was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So this movie, he begins it with the whole archival footage thing.
Yes, it's him, Captain Invincible, the man of magnet. The game's up for these bozos. The captain, knowing our cameras would be there, gave us these exclusive shots of himself in action. Thanks, Cap. With you around, we know gangsters are living in fear.
Which has almost become a little bit, I think, of a trope around superhero stuff. You know, like, let's go backwards in time and look at what happened to these guys.
It's like this newsreel footage of him fighting Nazis and everything. And then he has to go before this like McCarthy hearing, and they start accusing him of being a communist because he fought on the side of the Soviet Union, but it was in World War II when we all did. I don't understand his costume. Why does it have bird claws on the shoulders?
The bird claws are awesome. They're so great.
Why?
They're so great.
Are they there? Is he supposed to be like Hawkman or something?
His cape is wings. His capes are definitely wings, right?
So he's Eagle Man.
So it goes with the cape, having the talons there. So yeah, it's supposed to be. There's a bird theme in what he's doing. I don't know.
It's like newsreel footage, and I'm trying to figure out how old this guy must be, because it's unclear if he was fighting Nazis in World War II, and now is this supposed to be the 1980s?
Well, I assume if he's he's got alien blood. We'll find out. And so I assume he doesn't age the same. He doesn't age the same.
Okay.
In fact, when he's a baby, you could see that he was more than on the day he was born. He looked like a 1-year-old, right? We'll get to that. That's a fun scene. Yeah. That's a fun scene. Yeah, he could talk. Now, let me just slip in here, because we talked about how Christopher Lee reflects this, but Alan Arkin's parents his father was accused of being a communist. So this again kind of, is a little
interesting. Yeah,
a little touch of reality coming in. His father's career as a teacher was ruined because he was accused. I read in some places he was in fact a communist, but I also read he was accused of being, who knows? That was in Arkin's life. So that's really interesting also. Like at the very beginning, when we see the newsreel footage, one of the fun things is you keep seeing Christopher Lee kind of in the background or popping in. You see him next to Hitler. He's, and when he's standing next to Hitler, he is a industrialist crony in the audience of the McCarthy trial. You see him like sitting back. You just see so it's really fun because they just place him in the movie very subtly, but he's always there. So he's like Captain Invincible in that he's ageless.
He may be a vampire. He may be Dracula.
Well, we will see. There is a reveal as to that. There's an explanation to all this.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, there is.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, there is. Let me just say that the writer, he ended up writing, he had written for The $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman, Hardy Boys. He ended up co-writing Die Hard, 48 Hours, Running Man. He wrote Running Man. Hudson Hawk, The Flintstones, one of the people who wrote The Flintstones, and Gotta Catch Santa Claus. So that's Steven D'Souza, and the other writer is a nobody, but he's the reason that this movie became very delayed. Everybody ended up suing everybody else who was involved in this movie. It's a really complicated story, not worth getting into, but it delayed and then the distributor went out of business. Everybody who was involved in this movie also went out of business like a week before the release.
Right, and it was supposed to be released in the U.S. and the distributor went out of business before it could be.
And then when they were going to put out the reissue, it was right around when 9/11 happened. It was like, God damn it, because it's a very New York movie that shows the World Trade Center quite a bit. And it was just a really this was a very jinxed movie.
Yeah, it was about a terrorist plot to blow up New York. So you just can't release that at the time.
Yeah. So let's talk about the plot. It's so badly written that it's very confusing.
It's unclear. Yeah, it's hard to figure out exactly what the plot is. It starts out in Australia, and then they cut to New York, which is where Christopher Lee is, and he's Mr. Midnight, the bad guy.
The plan is to make New York less appealing, less livable.
So more crime and dog poop everywhere. So like they have Operation Feces. So they have these kind of nutty looking operators who are in New York City. They look like punks from a sitcom. Yeah, kind of punks from a sitcom. They don't look real. One's very drag queen, kind of John Waters kind of drag queen kind of thing. And they're purposefully putting poop all over the city to make it less appealing. Besides Operation Feces, they do a lot of graffiti, which is so funny because there was already in the 83. Come on.
Like you put graffiti on graffiti, nobody notices. Honestly, we were there. Joe and I were there. You would not have noticed if somebody was doing a campaign to make New York look ugly with graffiti because it was all graffitied. Everything was graffitied.
It took me 2 times watching the movie to figure out. So the plan was, Mr. Midnight's plan is make the city unlivable. And then that way, all of the city's ethnic minorities.
Explain ethnic minority.
Be persuaded to move into these specific ethnic communities that have been created. Yeah, and so there's this montage of like people who are sort of these ethnic caricatures of people who are supposed to be Italian and Russian, and there's an African Americans, and they're all it's all the same set that they keep redressing as a new ethnic community, and then they are then hypnotized by a hypno ray into moving there.
Right.
Which, if you had the hypno ray to hypnotize,
why did you do that?
Why do anything else?
Why Operation Feces? Why do you have Operation Feces?
Yeah, why just go right to hypnotizing people?
Let's even take another step backwards. Mr. Midnight wants to purify New York City. He's a racist jerk. I mean, you see him with Hitler at the beginning.
Get all the immigrants to move to these islands and then blow up the islands to eliminate all of the immigrants in New York. He says New York will be 100% pure. He doesn't say white, but that's what he means.
Pure. But pure, he means Anglo-Saxon, because he wants to get rid of the Polish people, the Sicilians. It's everybody who's not Anglo. So he's a real purist.
So how does all this somehow connect with Australia?
So somehow Captain Invincible, in a drunken stupor, he can fly anywhere. It does take him a while, but he somehow ended up in Australia.
Like 30 years earlier, and didn't know he was in Australia.
He didn't even know he was there. He's like, oh wait, this is Australia. He kind of comes out of his drunken stupor.
New York, New York, it's a wonderful town. The Bronx is up, and the Battery is down.
At this point, he's a total has-been. And he's like on the street, literally with a paper bottle and a paper bag kind of thing. Yeah. And this kindly woman who is a cop. Yeah. She notices because she gets attacked. She's in the middle of an altercation, and he's able to just toss a Volkswagen Beetle in the air.
It's important to note that the muggers have a flame belching Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Now, why? I don't know. Maybe it's like a Mad Max thing. Maybe things like that were common in Australia in the early 80s. I don't know. There's a mugger who's holding up a priest and then gets in his Volkswagen, which belches flames. It's apparently got that ability.
Yeah.
But then the drunken Captain Invincible gets in the way, and you have to figure out that the car hits him and flips over into the air. But you have to figure that out because they didn't have the budget to actually film it. The car goes after him, and it cuts away to the woman's reaction, and then you see a car flipping in the air and falling to the ground.
So they had enough budget to put it on a crane, lift it above the ground, and then let go of it. That was what they had the money for.
But no way to show what actually happens to cause that.
Now, Lady Cop. This is Kate Fitzpatrick. Kate Fitzpatrick, who really didn't do much else as far as I could see. She did a ton of TV in Australia. So I don't know. Maybe she's a huge television star in Australia.
Apparently, this is full of recognizable faces.
Yeah, of Australia.
In Australia.
So Kate Fitzpatrick, I think she is just awful. I think she is just.
She's really badly cast. She's not good in the role. She's not appealing.
So bad.
With respect, sir, I think you're wrong. After all he's been through, no one should give him orders. No one can give him orders.
Oh, what do you want?
Just you, Captain Invincible. Just you.
Yeah, and she has to sing at some point. She does a number, which is terrible. I don't even know if it's her voice.
No, it's not her voice. Thank God.
Yeah, it seems dubbed.
But it's sort of funny because they have her sing this love song, and it's very passionate. And she couldn't be. She's just a dead actor. She's one of those people who just has a dead. Her eyes are dead. Her voice is dead.
She has bad.
She has no range or no ability to express anything. She's just a blank. And so it's sort of funny that they have her sing this kind of gushing, like "I love you" kind of song, or you should be trying to inspire him to be a hero.
Don't get discouraged. Look to the skies. I'll be beside you, whatever you try.
I'll do it.
To begin with, he's going to use his amazing computer brain to find our missing suspect where others have failed.
So I don't even remember her name. Kate Fitzpatrick is her real name. I don't remember her character's name. She realizes something's going on, and when she goes back to the office, her boss, Bill Hunter, he somehow gets in a bulletin where they're looking for this guy. They're looking for Captain Invincible. And they put it all together and realize. So they track him down, and her whole mission is to befriend Captain Invincible and try to get him to help them. I don't even remember. How do they even know that something's going on?
Well, because what's going on is, I don't know. People are being hypnotized.
How do they know about?
Like they figured out a lot of people in New York are buying land on or something. American president apparently was a well-known actor.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to figure out that character was supposed to be the American president, because his accent is not very convincing at all.
I guess I haven't got the right to ask you for anything, Captain Invincible.
So the president is Michael Pate. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Pate. Pate.
Maybe.
He'd been around in olden time film days, like the 50s and stuff. So he was in probably the biggest movie he's in was The Court Jester, that Danny Kaye movie. But he'd been in Mia Farrow's daddy, John Farrow, the movie called Hondo, which was led by John Wayne. So he was in, he's in a couple of
wow, that's interesting.
He was in some significant films, generally playing the villain. But also interesting and fun for us is he was in the first Casino Royale with our pal from The Shining. As you know, I used to do a Shining podcast. Barry Nelson. He was in the original Casino Royale. He was in that. Yeah.
That is an interesting tidbit.
Yeah, that was good. That's the first portrayal of James Bond in history outside of the novels.
I want to point out that there is a scene where the American president is surrounded by all of the Joint Chiefs and advisors in a war room that's, I guess, supposed to be kind of like the Dr. Strangelove war room.
Yes. Yeah.
Minus the beautiful set, the good acting, and the laughs. What we get instead is the president singing a song which the only lyric is him just repeating the word bullshit, bullshit, bullshit over and over again.
Bullshit! Bullshit! Bullshit, 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 bullshit!
And that's the first song in the movie. So you're like 20 minutes in the movie.
That's the first song. That's when it becomes a musical.
And that's the only lyric. And you're like, what is this?
Bull, 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 bull. Shit, 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 shit.
This isn't even a song. Like, what is this? Like, you couldn't start with a better song to make you acclimated so that when the bullshit song comes, you're like, all right, I guess.
But then there's like a gospel song where the president says, what we need is a hero. And we find out that the president was the little boy from the newsreel that Captain Invincible spoke to.
Right. There was an earlier newsreel where he's visiting Boy Scouts, and he makes an impression on one of the Boy Scouts, a literal impression on his shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah. So it turns into like a gospel number.
Yeah.
The songs are this odd combination because there's a gospel number, there's a country number.
I like that song. I actually like that song.
That one's okay.
The gospel song.
What the world needs now is a shining hero. What the world needs now is a glory man who will fly down and down and down and down and save the day. What the world needs now, is a hero to help us through.
Yeah, and there's like rock numbers.
Yeah,
and like it's just this mishmash of genres. Well, I do like when Alan Arkin sings his song about the good guys and the bad guys, the country song.
Mm-hmm.
That's when Patty goes to visit him in his grubby little shack in Sydney. I like his grubby little shack in Sydney. It's kind of cool. He's got a fire going in there, and it's kind of neat.
The good guys and the bad guys. Today neither one wants to fight fair. They keep changing the rules, making all of us fools, until finally nobody cares.
There's one gag in the movie, there's a running gag in the movie that is actually really clever and really, really well done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's of Mr. Midnight having pets.
Yeah.
And feeding his pets to his other pets.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and it's a running joke through the movie that pays off because he has a slug, and then he feeds the slug to his frog, and then later on he feeds his frog to the snake.
Yeah.
And then later on he feeds his snake to the vulture.
Yeah.
And then the vulture gets fed to him on a plate. That's really well.
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
really
great
cute.
gag.
It is. It's a great gag, and it's a puppet vulture. I love the vulture. It's a puppet vulture.
Right. Yeah.
And its name is Schultz, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, Schultz.
I didn't get all the pets' names.
Yeah. But then even bonus, my God, is Julius. Is it Julius?
He has this assistant who I'm not sure if he's supposed to be a mutant or an alien, or it's never made clear, but he shows up. He's sort of monkey.
He's monkey adjacent.
Kind of, yeah. But then when you see the scene of the group of space aliens that seem to have created Captain Invincible by zapping his parents while they were having sex,
right?
In some way, Julius is in the background of that group, not in the foreground. They're all different. They're all one kind of alien, but then he's with them too in the background.
Well, I was wondering if Christopher Lee was one of those aliens. One of them looks a little bit like Christopher Lee.
I couldn't tell.
So here's the other thing you should know that we'll try to explain if we can, if we understand it properly. But confusing. So the origin of Captain Invincible is his parents were two young people having sex outdoors
in Washington D.C. Because there's stock footage of a flying saucer over the Capitol.
So they're having sex outdoors, and the aliens are shooting like supposedly a beam down on them as they're having sex.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and it's impregnating them, and it's pretty funny because when they finish having sex, all of the aliens, this whole big group of aliens, has a cigarette. It's funny.
But for some reason, Mr. Midnight's assistant is among them, but it's not the same guy because he's taller. So they just reused the mask or something.
But see, that's why Mr. Midnight's an alien. Mr. Midnight is. I think Mr. Midnight is among that group. I think he's among that group. I don't think
he is, though.
Certainly, his assistant is an alien.
Also, why?
And it explains why he's ageless.
When you see Captain Invincible's father in the nursery, his father is dressed like it's the turn of the century. His father dressed like it's 1901 for some reason.
Well, it had to be pretty early if he's fighting prohibition, bootleggers. So the point is they basically impregnated her via their beams. Okay.
But
that's
Mr.
why they
Midnight
have a
is also an alien.
So yeah, I believe he is part of that crew of aliens that had the impregnation process going on. I think the implication, and he's ageless, is that he's an alien. So all right, so these are all aliens. It's like Superman, it's like all of that stuff. So when Captain Invincible's born, they bring the father, and it's like, well, he seems to be quite a large kid. And the mother's
like
sleeping
18 months old.
Sleeping
like,
in the cot. They're like, where's the baby? And they look up, and I love this shot. I love this joke. He's upside down on the ceiling, and he's actually beginning to talk, and he's saying his super words. He has a few super words to make him fly out of the blue. Is that what it is?
Into the blue
is what he says to fly. Yeah. So he's like, into the blue. It's totally cute. It's really cute. I don't like babies, but that's a cute scene. He's not human.
I don't think he's an alien. I think he's a human who's been given powers.
No, I disagree. Well, I think he's a hybrid. I think he's a hybrid.
Like a human. He looks like a human. He eats like a human.
He's a hybrid. He's a hybrid. But so is Christopher Lee. All right. Anyway. All right. So are the aliens. All the aliens you see look human except for the monkey alien.
So a couple of things I want to point out.
Okay.
I do love the monkey alien, Julian. Yeah. I think he's very cool. I want to know who the hell he is, though. Why is he there? It's unclear. It's never explained. There's a scene where they've got Captain Invincible now, and he's agreed to come back and save the world. So they've got to get him like training so he can get his powers back. And one of his powers is magnets.
Yeah.
He's magnetic, but he can't control it. So of course, his attempts to control his magnetic power pulls all the buttons off of all the women's clothing.
Yeah.
Just so we can have some boobs in the movie. Totally gratuitous boobs.
It's very 80s.
Like a scene from Zapped with Scott Payne. It's not even the only time it happens in the movie.
Yes, right. It happens a couple times.
While we're on the subject of feminism, there is a little bit of discussion where there's a little fish out of water stuff with Captain Invincible coming out of a 30-year drunken stupor.
Yeah.
And there's a part where she's telling him about women's lib. And he's like, so, you know what? I can't say a mailman anymore. I have to say a male person. And I'm thinking, wow, this was filmed around 1981. And the whole thing of like political correctness and you can't say mailman, you have to say male person now. That was already a thing. And it was already a thing that people were discussing and making fun of a little bit and sort of being bemused by. And so it's not a thing that happened in 2012, where like if you watch like certain news channels, you'd think that, oh, the world's gone too politically correct and that's a recent phenomenon. Nothing of the sort. This is 40 years ago, literally, that was filmed.
Yeah. Well, we're still saying mankind, which bugs the fucking hell out of me. All right, sorry, that's a whole other thing. All right, so anyway,
what would you rather
carrier,
we say?
Humankind. It's so easy. It's so easy. 2 letters, humankind,
right.
or people,
But
or people.
Who made
humanity?
Who made
humanity.
it humankind? It was men. Men
right,
made this world what it is today, and we're sorry.
Right. Yeah, they did. That's why it fucking sucks so bad. The flying special effects, which are purposefully terrible, like they make it a joke when you see him flying through the air. They go out of their way to make it look ridiculous, right? They make it look ridiculous. It's part of the comedy of this movie. There's 2 really fun scenes I just want to go over. One is the deli scene. So there's a scene where he's in a deli, and there's some Hasidic Jews, and it's supposed to be like a typical New York kind of deli.
Katska's Deli.
Yeah, Katska's. And but it feels like a set, it just doesn't feel real at all. And in fact, he suspects
the guy behind the counter is really Jewish or really a human.
He's not
Israeli acres. But don't take my word for it. Check it out for yourself. But hurry, I hear they're almost all sold.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Mention my name. Can I help you?
Yeah. Like a pastrami and a corned beef, please.
Right.
Both on rye. And, anything else, honey?
A pint of coleslaw and a half a pound of nova.
Coming up.
Yeah, and some March's herring and little halava and some information about Mr. Midnight.
Mr. Who?
You heard me.
Captain.
Listen to me, buddy. I've been in the shop 20 years. I ain't never heard of Mr. Midnight or Moonlight or whatever.
Yes? Then why are you putting mayonnaise on a corned beef sandwich?
Be with you in a minute. Gefilte fish. Hit the dirt!
Yeah, because he puts mayonnaise on the pastrami sandwich.
Right, he puts mayonnaise. He's like,
it's a good gag.
That's it's the big reveal is you can tell he's not Jewish because he puts mayonnaise on pastrami. Yeah. So the nefarious fake Jewish man behind the deli pulls out a fish gun, which is pretty
like a big sturgeon.
Fish. Yeah, it's big sturgeon.
Like a gefilte fish. Yeah.
And he's firing away with this fish gun, and it's actually
it's like a sausage gun to a salami gun.
There's a salami thing where the machine that makes hot dogs is shooting out missiles, and it's quite fun. It's pretty low budget, but it's quite fun, and everybody gets completely messy, and it's really fun.
Whatever happened to the world that I once knew? They call this progress. It can't be true. What was wrong with the time when a dime was a dime? Men wore a coat and tie. World leaders didn't have to lie.
This movie is fun. It's terribly written.
Terrible.
It makes no sense, but it's fun. So the other fun scene so let me also say that Philippe Mora wanted James Coburn to be the star of this movie, not Alan Arkin. That was his first pick.
Right.
And James Coburn, he was like, I don't understand this script. I don't understand the script at all. What the hell do these vacuum cleaners have to do with anything? And he just passed on it because of that was like the thing he pulled out of it was I don't understand the vacuum cleaners.
I agree with that question though. What is the vacuum cleaner scene? What's going on?
So when they were filming that, Alan's like, I don't understand this. Wait a minute. And Philippe Mora's like, it's too late. Just do it. So superpowers include flying, magnetism, and a supercomputer brain. He has a supercomputer brain,
right,
which at one point gets very glitchy. They feed him all this information to try to find the nefarious villains in this movie. So they feed him the phone book, the schedule of every door-to-door salesman in Australia, criminals who have been recently released, stuff like that. It's pretty funny actually. So they feed him like these volumes of like what really is useless information, and he speed reads all of it. But then his brain gets glitchy. His supercomputer brain that's speed reading and then spitting out information gets glitchy and starts speaking in high speed.
Give my regards to Broadway. Broadway first became the apex of this industry circa 1850, when its central location drew both fashionable impresarios and audiences. When 80 theaters started this, since then, the number but not the quality of the theaters has gone into steady decline.
And he has trouble. They keep conking him on the head to try to get it to unglitch. And that scene, I think, is pretty amusing. I think
he gets to do this sort of classic Alan Arkin improv tour de force,
right?
Like he does in Simon and in a little bit in the In-Laws too.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So apparently, what we're supposed
confusing.
What we're supposed to get from that, which I only understood after really watching it 2.5 times, and going back to that scene. What came out of all that was he pinpointed them to this Hoover vacuum shop. And it's great. It has the old Hoover logo, like that round, and so it's a shop that sells nothing but Hoover vacuums. And they don't really know why they're there. They just know that that's a locus. And so while they're in there, you see Christopher Lee, Mr. Midnight, with a snake wrapped around and he's petting this snake.
I knew that Captain Invincible was beaten, broken, a drunken clown. And content with the pleasure that knowledge gave me, I foolishly stayed my hand.
And they're connecting him doing this snake, working with this snake. The snake is a reflection of all of those vacuum hoses attacking them. So he's using like magical alien powers, reflecting the snake to get all of these vacuums, all the vacuums all along the walls and all along the floor start attacking, and they're choking them and like pythons and all that stuff. And then they funny also is they are sucking all the air out of the room.
At the same time, right? So they're about to pass out. Before this happens, they're on a subway car, which leads into one of the really good songs in the movie, which is "Evil Midnight," which is a duet with Alan Arkin and Christopher Lee both singing.
That's one written by Rich O'Brien. I actually don't like that song that much.
It's good. I like it.
I don't like that song as much.
I like it a lot.
Long before the dawn of man, there was born an evil plan. Believe me when I say that there's no other side to midnight. Hold on, sit tight, you never ever did right. Roll on midnight, you're spoiling for the big fight, Mr. Evil Midnight.
Long before the sands of time, there was evil doing well. Long before the birth of crime, there was evil building hell.
So it's a duet. Yeah, it's kind of exciting because it's a duet between Christopher Lee and Alan Arkin.
It's a song where they both sing at the same time.
Yeah, and they kind of cut between them. They're kind of talking about each other at a long distance. And there's dancing.
Like
yeah, there's dancing, and it's very 80s. They're very 80s dancing. Yeah, it's cool. I just think the song doesn't hang together very well, but it's fun. It's definitely fun. I'm not really knocking it too hard. There's a really fun scene too when the Vulture scene happens after you've met the Vulture. There's this really interesting scene where they speed up. So Christopher Lee's just sitting. It's very creatively done. Just why not? He's sitting at the table waiting for his dinner, and this crazy waiter who just showed up every once in a while.
I couldn't figure out that scene at all.
They sped it up, and so Christopher Lee's sitting perfectly still. He had to be a very patient actor to do this. God bless him for doing this. It probably took hours, and they have the waiter running around. He's sleeping. He's kind of fooling around in bed with these women. He's getting his food. He's setting up the dinner table. The monkey creature guy at one point
he's
is in bed with the girls. Yeah. And this
seem fussy. They're not
and then the waiter gets annoyed and he puts the monkey back at the table, monkey monster, Julius. And then at some point they're like behind the bar and you see just legs and arms and people having sex. And it's supposed to be very saucy. It's supposed to be like to have that Rocky Horror vibe. They're trying to get that saucy Rocky Horror vibe in there.
I thought it was more like a Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, maybe.
Scene.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. I did not connect that. Clockwork Orange. Yeah, that's the same kind of thing. And but except for that, poor Christopher Lee had to sit there perfectly still, which must have been a drag.
I have to go back and watch that. It didn't occur to me that Christopher Lee was not in sped up motion.
He just sits. Yeah, he
would have had to have done that in camera. Yeah.
Yep.
That's interesting. Okay.
And then the punchline at the end is they serve him the vultures. It's pretty cool.
Which is a great gag.
Yeah.
That's a great gag.
One of the other really inexplicable things is somehow they think this is some kind of expository scene, but it's not, because it just compounds your confusion. Is Christopher Lee in a giant swimming pool with a scale version of New York.
Right, showing you his evil plan, which you still don't know when the scene is over. You still don't know what this plan is.
Why is he in a swimming pool? Julius is in a little raft, which is kind of funny. Cute. And then there's this waiter through the whole thing who speaks gibberish. I don't know I don't even understand that either. There's a waiter that speaks gibberish who's just an
Midnight
extra.
tips him.
So, our gallant captain has finally arrived. Unfortunate, but not entirely unexpected. You may go, mister. Yes. Oh, of course.
Merci.
Again, it took me two tries to figure out his plan was, and he says, when the pure genetic Americans see how I've cleaned up that cesspool New York.
Yeah.
So that
Right.
appears to be his plan. And then he believes he'll be hailed as a hero for removing all of the ethnic minorities from New York. So, but that is the theme of the movie, is that, and I like that when they get to New York, Captain Invincible has kept a lair in the head of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where the Circle Line tour guide quotes Emma Lazarus, and Captain lives in the statue. So he has a little apartment up there, which is kind of neat. It's pretty cool, actually. And he's got all his stuff from the 1940s. And we find out that he's really into Kate Smith.
Yeah.
And he's really into her singing God Bless America. And then over the end credits, there's actual footage of immigrants coming to Ellis Island. And I have to give the movie credit for having that message.
Yeah, it's really lovely.
Yeah,
I mean, it is. It's a lovely message. Philippe Mora was not American. Of course, they had to deal with obviously all of that stuff there too in Australia, and still are. And most of these countries have the same issues at a much smaller scale.
Well, I mean, they have the same issue with the natives that we have, with the indigenous people that we have too. Yeah,
right, exactly. So right. So I like that they put him in the head of the statue. That's the thing. The settings are very creative. The little scenarios they come up with are very creative. It's such a shame.
Yeah.
Part of it is just the writing, because even just the dialogue is just fucking awful, and it's just, if somebody good had done a pass through this whole movie, it might have really, really helped. Yeah, just as at the very ending, he believes he's still going to get these messages that they need him.
He thinks this like armed forces network from the 1940s is still on.
Yeah.
He wants to believe it's still on.
Yeah, and she's kind of like, yeah, I really don't think that still exists. He's like, no, I'm sure it does, and it's sort of sweet.
No, she's still not on.
The American Eagle Network. I hate to tell you this, but I don't think that's around anymore.
Don't say it, Patty. I don't want you to bury any more dreams of mine, so just don't say it.
I'm sorry, but I have to tell you the truth about things that have changed.
Things haven't changed, Patty. People have changed. People in the whole damn country. It's lost something. It's lost something vital, like honesty and pride, integrity, and a sense of the future.
So then, again, next is somehow we get back to the deli. We're in the deli. That's that scene where the deli massacre happens. Someone even gets decapitated by a
slicer.
By a slicer. Yeah, by a cold cut slicer. Yeah, so hardcore. So anyway, that's where he falls through the tunnel. There's some weird tunnel now, and it somehow takes him. It's again completely scratch your head stuff. Takes him to like the basement of where Mr. Midnight is. This is a pretty dumb, and I had to watch this a couple times to get what was going on here. So as he's approaching Mr. Midnight has a little board in front of him, control board, that opens up like a la typical Bond villain stuff, where they open up the floor and he falls into a snake pit.
Going with this.
So he has 4 snake pits, and he keeps opening up the floor, and like Alan Arkin falls into the snake pit, then he gets himself out of the snake pit. Then he has alligator pits, and then
dumbest joke.
he hits a button that says peach pit, and down comes
a
giant peach pit to clobber him, which he successfully avoids. And he's like,
well, that was really the pits.
And it's really a far way to go.
But if you can get through that horrible gag, you get to the best part of the movie.
The best part of the movie. So they're finally confronting each other in person. And Christopher Lee's very clever plan is, knowing that Captain Invincible's weakness is alcohol, he reveals a giant bar full of every drink you could possibly imagine.
Well-stocked bar, yes.
Yeah, beautiful, well-stocked bar. And he breaks into the best song in the movie for sure.
By far.
Yeah, and then these girls, very 80s kind of dancing girls, a little bit. There's definitely a Rocky Horror vibe. There's a little, you can hear the Rocky Horror sound in the backing vocals and in the instrumentation.
Yeah. Not only does the song sound like it has a Rocky Horror vibe, there's a lyrical reference to Deanna Durbin. You're referencing old movie stars.
Oh, really? I didn't even notice that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very Rocky Horror.
Might I say that I'm old-fashioned, très fin ordinaire? That I want a fresh Manhattan with white Anglo-Saxons everywhere? Black Russians, no pink lady. Give her the Singapore sling. A Moscow mule is not your baby. So highball the vodka and name your sting. Be a big shot with a bull shot. Be a swine, meet the vine. Have a shot or a port or a snort of any sort. Asti spumante. Uno Chianti. Artiva! So, down the hatch, here's mud in your eye. Take a bracer with a chaser, wash it down with rye. Bottoms up, stirrup cup, it'll put you in the pink. And all you have to do is drink, 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 drink.
And Christopher Lee just nails it so hard, nails it so hard.
He's even doing some choreography with. He's doing interesting things with his long, beautiful hands that he had. You know, not like these, by the way. These are not those. What he had were beautiful. I don't know what's going on with this.
So I don't even remember what happens after that, but I do know that they start.
He just blows everything up.
Starts blowing everything up. So
everything
so
gets blown up.
so we're
no. What happens after that is Kate Smith is what happens.
So that's right. So what gave, that's what it is. So what gave Captain Invisible his strength to resist all of that alcohol was the lady whose name we can't remember, but who's performed by a terrible actress. She starts broadcasting as if she is that broadcast,
that old Armed Forces network, right? Which comes through his wrist radio, which very coolly is shaped like an old-timey radio. It's shaped like an old radio set, which I
very
think
steampunk. There's like a lot of steampunk little notes in this before there was steampunk. And she gives a really lovely speech, actually.
Broadcasting one last time for all of you out there who still believe in fairies, heroes, second chances, love and trust. Captain, they're playing your song.
And she plays, and you see the actual footage of Kate Smith singing. Now, Philip Mora, to get that footage, contacted no less than Irving Berlin. He contacted Irving Berlin, and he said, "Sir, may I please use that song?" And Irving Berlin said, $10,000. He's like, "Okay," and that was it. That was
that's what you got to do.
Yeah. All the immigrant communities have their land is broken off, they're floating off, and there's the submarines and blah blah blah, and they're gonna get all exploded and all So I don't know. We see a map and a Sicilian island. I don't know, Afro Islands. It's crazy. So how it ends, which is just so disappointing, is they're in that swimming pool. They're in that scale model of New York swimming pool, and Alan Arkin, Captain Invincible, grabs the giant globe. It's like a giant.
Somehow that kills Mr. Midnight.
And throws it at Mr. Midnight, and that's the end. That's
the last we see of him. Yeah.
We are to assume that I guess the globe killed him. Now
maybe
it is
they left it open-ended so there could be a sequel.
Yeah, but it is symbolically lovely. Okay, it's symbolically lovely. Right. So I will give them that.
Again, the messaging in the movie is very good.
I thought, okay, I understand why they did that, and it's lovely, but it was not shot well. It was not shot well.
Moments ago, sections of the New York State coastline broke away. The ethnic populations trapped on the floating sections were rescued by Captain Invincible from a submarine attack masterminded by arch-criminal Mr. Midnight, although this has not been confirmed.
Now, I'm not a public speaker or an expert or anything, but there's something I'd like to say. We've all been through a lot together. And it wasn't all your fault, but some of it was. That's because a lot of us, including me, have been thinking we're all alone in the world. Alone or part of some helpless little group. And that's what makes us such easy marks for the bad guys. But together, we're not alone. We're not helpless. Together, we're part of the roughest, toughest, biggest, kindest, fairest, bestest darn gang in the whole world.
He flies over New York with a bullhorn, which you think that might not reach everybody. Maybe if you're right under him, maybe like on the street.
He's pretty high up. He's in the clouds. He's
really high up, So I don't know if that's a great way to get people's attention.
Yeah. So that's how it ends. And again, the writing is so terrible. It's like, we're all in a gang together. We're in a gang, and it's just like, it's really, some of the writing is just awful.
It's
so
not good.
It's not
I
great.
bet they thought that this was Captain Invincible Part 1. I bet they thought this was.
Yeah.
Even though it's called The Return of Captain Invincible, implying that this is a sequel, which it isn't.
Yeah.
And wasn't going to spawn any sequels. I do like that at the end of the movie, the leading lady refers to Captain Invincible as Vince.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
There's a very it's hard to it's easy to miss, but she has decided to nickname him Vince, which is that's a great nickname.
Patty, that was one terrific broadcast.
Nothing to it, Vince. All I had to do was get on your wavelength.
Well, you're on it.
It's also the name of Peter Falk in The In-Laws.
That's right.
We almost forgot to mention that this movie was a huge bomb when it was released. It cost $7 million. It did not even make $250,000 release.
I think it made 55,000 or something. Yeah, it's crazy how little
not even.
it made.
It made very little. Was it worth it? Was it worth it for Captain Invincible to return? Should he have returned?
I think there's a lot of negative, but man, the positive is just it's
a handful of good things in this movie are really good and really fun. And again, it's a movie with an overall positive message.
Yeah.
And I'm very much into the idea now that you know what movies are really bad? Movies with messages that offend me. Movies which glorify ideas that I think are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're well made or not, So by that measure, this is a far, far better movie than, say, Triumph of the Will.
Yeah, it is.
On a technical level, it's not, but really it is.
I think I agree with you there. I would say I concur.
Hey, this is just a reminder to please like and subscribe. We've ended our Patreon, so from here on in, we're going to just put all of our videos right here on YouTube. We are generally demonetized by YouTube because we use so many clips. So if you'd like to tip us or donate and support our work, we'd really be so grateful. If you go to our main YouTube page, the banner at the top there in the right-hand corner, there is a donate button. Thank you so much.